Is it possible that the actual divide in this country is empathy or a lack thereof? So I've been thinking about this for a while. Some time ago, before he was assassinated, Charlie Kirk made a comment that I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that does a lot of damage. Those are the actual words of Charlie Kirk. And I don't believe that he, in and of himself, was the harbinger of this concept, nor do I believe that he is the only person that feels that way. But what I do believe is that this lack of empathy that we have predominantly on the right, I'm not going to say it doesn't exist on the left as well, but predominantly on the right, I believe is a product of generational change away from us being a culture that lifts and supports each other to a rat race, a culture that competes and divides. And there is a myriad of things that you can point to that are the contributing factors to this divide in this country. I've mentioned some of them in the past. The 24-hour news cycle is always a culprit that we can point to. Social media certainly plays a part in it as well. Bots now in the modern social media, AI is being used. Deep fake tools all over the place. Religion, race, gender, sexual orientation. These are all things that have been either used to divide us or the rallying points for the said division. So, it got me thinking today on the concept of empathy is why do some of us have empathy and some of us do not? What is it about that we find it on one side and not on the other? And I don't have the answers to this. This is more a situation in which I want to have a dialogue with you. I've been getting more and more comments on my videos. I appreciate it, even from the MAGA folks that want to come on there and just tell me how wrong I am. I appreciate the engagement. I really do. I may rebut with some rude comments back to you because I don't necessarily agree with you or even for that mark value your opinion. But I do appreciate the engagement and I do read all the comments. So even if I respond with something off color, know that I've at least read it. I'm at least absorbing what it is that you have to say. Now, that leads me to a point that is often made from the right regarding the left. Empathy, which I believe that we should all have, is not the same as tolerance. I don't believe that tolerance is warranted for everybody. I don't believe that tolerance is acceptable in every circumstance. I do believe that there is a time and a place, and I think that time and a place is right now for those of us that are in disagreement about what is being classified as a political divide. We do not need to be tolerant of each other. I do not believe that the fundamental movement of MAGA and the concepts of which they stand behind are a political divide. Fascism and democracy are not political ideologies. Fascism is control. Fascism is a way of controlling thought, controlling freedom, controlling money and the flow of money, capital, all of those things. It is at the end of the day, this current MAGA version of fascism, this is a predominantly boomer takeover of how our government, our country, and thus the world is run because people are not getting the things that they want out of life. And in addition to that, we're dealing with resilient anger, like old anger from during COVID, which was now 6 years ago. In like 3 weeks, it'll have been 6 years since COVID hit the United States. And the amount of anger over wearing masks and being asked, and in some cases forced, to get a vaccine, the amount of anger and vitriol that still exists out of that space is just extraordinary. Followed up very quickly by George Floyd and the new civil rights movement that occurred from 2020 on. And then, of course, get into the entire, out of that came the entire idea of the woke culture and wokeism, which, by the way, is just a way of saying that we understand other people and we have empathy for them. So it brings me all back around. Empathy seems to be something that is devoid in the mindsets of the right, with the exception being that they have empathy for people that look like them, people that think like them, people that are in similar circumstances as them. But they don't, however, want to ever show empathy for people that are different color, different race, different gender, different sexual orientation, different religion. These are things that they don't know how to show empathy for. Now, why? I don't know. Okay, the bottom line is I don't know the answer as to why empathy does not exist on the right. I don't know where what part of that ideology restricts the ability to have empathy. I do know that predominantly, or I don't want to say no, I got to be careful about the words that I use since I am on an online platform. I don't believe that empathy in and of itself or lack thereof is specifically a part of the conservative movement. I do believe that it is, the lack of empathy is a fundamental part of the libertarian movement, however. And I think a greater number of Americans that vote Republican actually self-identify as libertarians rather than traditional Republicans. And it's this new, adjacent to the classic conservative movement. I think a lot of this was born out of the Tea Party era during Obama, which is why a lot of the same angers about Obama being president and racial divides that occurred out of that time period are still existent. But that was the Tea Party movement under Boehner and that time period. That was a result of an ever-growing increase in this libertarian movement. Now, the reality is that the majority of people that consider themselves or self-identify as libertarians don't even understand what that term really means, in the same way that most conservatives don't understand what socialism and Marxism is, or even for that matter, communism. Now, I think we can all agree that communism is bad, but there are aspects of socialism that most capitalists and most conservatives just don't understand. And certainly Marxism has never been fully understood by the vast majority of people. And the ones that do despise Marxism and are truly afraid of it are only really capitalists that really benefit from the capitalist system that we have here in the United States, which is only for a few. Capitalism is only for a few. Now, in full disclosure, before you guys come at me, for those of you that do know me and say, well, you're a capitalist, my financial situation benefits from capitalism. Yes, I am a capitalist in so much that the primary motivator for my financial gain is having capital, having employees, owning a business, and making money off of that. Now, where that shifts is that what I do is I pay an incredible wage. I pay for health insurance. I offer 401k. So I do all of the socialist things for my staff to ensure that they are getting an equal slice of the pie from my business. Right? That's the difference. That is not the same as capitalists in large corporations like Tesla or Microsoft or Amazon, where the people at the very, very top are making billions and billions and billions of dollars, while the lower end workers are making maybe $15 an hour. That is not socialism. That is pure capitalism. It's a form of indentured servitude, almost like slavery, but not in the same way, because you can say, oh, they're getting paid, they're not slaves. But it doesn't matter. If you live in a system in which the majority or all of your wages have to go to food and lodging and healthcare, and you have nothing else to show afterward, that is a form of slavery, which is what modern capitalism has become. What happens is that most conservatives, and especially those that identify themselves as libertarians, they see that system as the foundation. That is the foundation of who we are. And so they don't feel any sense of sympathy for the people beneath them because they're also scraping to get by. It is astonishing to me how many Americans that are barely making it, have this sycophantic love for millionaires and billionaires and absolute derision for the poorest people in America. That is a type of mind fuck that I will simply never understand. Whereas if you flip the tables and just looked deep within yourself in the things that you care about and what makes your heart stir and what makes your soul soar, and apply those same things to the people that are beneath you, the people that are struggling, whether it's institutional racism or religious persecution or sexual orientation, like denial to access, whatever it is that you want to look at, and just for a moment, even a brief moment, try to walk in their shoes. Try to understand, and right now, in this moment right now, try to understand what it's like to be a brown person in this country. Even if you are born here, even if you are an American citizen, imagine you were born here. Your parents may be even born here, but your family, maybe your grandparents are from Mexico. So you have a Mexican flag logo on your car, maybe a sticker or whatever. And now you're afraid to drive in major cities because you don't know if you're going to get kidnapped off the street and have questions asked later. Try to think about what the parents, like somebody in that situation who's a parent with a young child, 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, very notable cases of children that were kidnapped off the street because they may or may not be here illegally. You know, this idea of the human race being a competition for minimal success is the heart of why we don't have empathy. Now, in a perfect world, in a perfect socialist world, this wealth would be spread out amongst all of us. As a diehard liberal, as a progressive, I do not believe that is where we should be. I have never once, nor does anybody that I actually like believe in or follow or understand in any way, shape, or form, does anybody promote the idea of absolutely taking all the wealth from everybody and then distributing it equally. Nobody wants that. Welfare systems are in place to help those that are institutionally like diminished in their access to equity, right? And that difference of equity versus equality is the fundamental break in understanding for most people of what should be and what should not be. And I don't have time to get into all that right now. Maybe I'll do that in a video down the road. But right now, I just, if some of you people that are coming into my comment section with vitriol and hatred, and especially on my Trump derangement video, my God, if just some of you, if one person out there that actually believes in this MAGA agenda, if one person could figure out how to have empathy, it would blow my mind. Now, I was raised in a union household. I've had progressive ideals since I was a little kid, but I was also in the U.S. military, in which there's a certain level of indoctrination that occurs, and most military guys start to see themselves, and gals start to see themselves shift to the right a little bit. That happened for me as well. In the beginning of the George Bush Jr., in the beginning of his presidency in 2000, I was on the side to a certain extent of the Republican movement. I wasn't a Republican. I didn't actually even vote in that election, I don't think. But I was, to a certain extent happy that Al Gore lost. And there's a whole story behind that regarding Tipper Gore and the censorship of music and parental notifications on records and all that kind of stuff that rubbed me the wrong way. But it was the first time in which I questioned my political beliefs was when George Bush removed access to stem cell research. That was the tipping point for me. Then the second major shift for me was when the market crashed in 2008, and then up out of that rose the Occupy Wall Street movement and the concept of one percenters. And that wealth inequality in this country and wage disparities and the CEOs and golden parachutes and too big to fails and the bank buyouts and all that stuff really opened my mind to what was wrong with our country, but the world in general. And then starting in about 2010, 2011, I started, down this path right here, the Buddha. Now I'm not a Buddhist. I mean, I don't classify myself as any form of religious sect. I certainly do not try to define and put my spirituality in any kind of a box. But the teaching of the Buddha and the Buddhist principles, those have become the bedrock of my belief systems. And it comes down to a simple understanding of what suffering is and how to mitigate or eliminate suffering in your own life. But moreover, the understanding that to help the suffering of as many people as we can is the best way to make the world a better place. And for those of you out there with this selfish agenda, only worrying about yourselves and those immediately around you, the people that look like you and think like you and believe in the same God as you, if we could just park that and find a way to think about everybody, almost all of our conflict would just go away. And I know that's wishful thinking. I know we're not going to get anywhere near there in my lifetime, but butterfly effect, man. Small little shifts in airstreams can create hurricanes. Anyway, that's what I got for you tonight. I didn't want to come in with too much negativity because there has been so much hatred since Bad Bunny's performance at the Super Bowl last night. I don't necessarily like where we are in this country, but I'm going to do my part as much as I can to try to bring some understanding between the fringes of these things. I mean, there are hard right people that we're never going to get to, and there are hard left people that think I'm an idiot too. So somewhere in the middle, I think, is the collective majority of us. So if you like what I had to say, do me a favor, like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on those notification bells too, so that you know exactly when I post a video. And I really appreciate you guys watching. I've enjoyed this. I've been doing this now we're gonna be creeping on 2 months, and I don't want to stop. I think I'm slowly building something here. And at the end of the day, I really enjoy it. So as always, thank you for watching. I'm Christopher Hess. I'll see you tomorrow with another video. Hey, thanks again for watching the Christopher Hess Show. I'm really glad you took the time to watch. Now, if you liked what you saw, you can click right here. This will help you subscribe to my channel. Or you can click over here for a video that YouTube thinks is one you would like to watch. Once again, thanks for watching and have a great day.